At my wife's birthday party, my name tag said, father of her child, allegedly. Her ex whipped around and yelled, "What did you just say?" I smiled, looked at the DNA results in my pocket, and said, "Want to open it together in front of everyone, or should we wait until cake?" My name is Joe, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've spent most of my adult life covered in sawdust and paint chips. I fix old houses, residential remodeling, flipping properties, fixing what others call lost causes. It's good work, honest work. My hands are calloused, my knees ache when it rains, but I like building things. There's a quiet kind of satisfaction in watching something broken become whole again. I always thought I'd build a solid life the same way, slowly, steadily, with care and commitment. Alana came into my life on a random afternoon in May. She was standing on the porch of the rental across the street from a house I was renovating on Lake Drive. She was holding a glass pitcher of lemonade and laughing with her roommate. I remember that laugh. It had this scratchy edge, like she'd smoked too much in her 20s, but it was still soft, inviting. That laugh got me before her looks even did. And Alana was beautiful in a messy, lived-in kind of way. Wavy chestnut hair, strong cheekbones, and eyes that always seemed like they were scanning the room for something more interesting. She walked across the street one afternoon and handed me a plastic cup full of lemonade. "Figured you could use a break," she said. I looked like HLL, sweating through a stained white t-shirt, jeans ripped from crawling under the house. Still, she didn't seem to care. I remember thinking, this woman doesn't flinch. That means something. Things moved quickly after that. She told me about her ex, a guy named Clayton who she dated off and on for years. "He's a chapter one should have closed years ago," she said one night over beers. I didn't ask too many questions. People have history. So do I. We started dating, and within 6 months, she found out she was pregnant. It was a surprise, sure, but not the kind that knocked me off balance. I was 34, tired of being alone, and ready for more. She told me it was mine. Said it with certainty. I asked her if there was any chance it wasn't. She gave me a look that shut the conversation down completely, disappointed, offended, a little scared. Why would you even ask that? So I believed her. We got married in a courthouse ceremony. Just us, my sister, and her mom. It wasn't fancy, but it felt right at the time. Mira was born in the middle of a snowstorm. I remember driving to the hospital with one hand on the wheel, the other gripping hers while she screamed through contractions in the passenger seat. When Mira came out, she had a full head of light blonde hair and this scrunched-up little face that made her look like an angry old man. I loved her instantly. I never even thought about the paternity again. Not until she was 5. It was little things at first. Mira had this way of squinting when she was concentrating. Alana never did that. Neither did I. Her chin had a little cleft in it, just a small dent, but it didn't come from me, and it sure as HLL didn't come from her. Then, one afternoon, I picked her up from daycare and one of the workers said, "She looks just like her dad." But they weren't talking about me. They were talking about Clayton, who apparently had shown up for pickup one day by mistake. Said he was there for his niece. The daycare director didn't know the backstory, but something about it made my stomach twist. I confronted Alana that night. Asked her why Clayton was anywhere near Mira's daycare. She said it was a coincidence. That he lived a few blocks away now. "You're being paranoid," she said. That night, I sat alone in the living room while she slept upstairs. I scrolled through photos on my phone. Pictures of Mira and me, selfies, candids, all of them. I wanted to see myself in her face. I squinted, tilted the phone, tried to convince myself the resemblance was there. But something cracked open inside me, and once it did, I couldn't close it again. I didn't tell anyone. Not my sister. Not my best friend. I didn't want opinions. I wanted facts. So I took one of Mira's hairs from her hairbrush and sent it off to a paternity lab in Chicago. The whole thing was discreet, sealed envelope. No names, just barcodes. I paid extra for a rush analysis. It cost me more than I should have spent that month, but I couldn't live with the uncertainty. I got the results the same week Alana was planning her 39th birthday party. She went all out. Rented a tent for the backyard, strung up fairy lights, catered food from a fancy Italian place downtown. There was a bartender, a playlist she'd spent weeks curating, and little glass jars of candy with a 39 labels glued on. And Clayton was invited. I asked her why. "He's part of my past, Joe. It's not weird. It's just a party." But it was weird. He walked around the backyard like he owned the place. He hugged her too long when he arrived. He called Mira a sweetheart, and she hugged him like she'd known him her whole life. My chest felt tight watching it. That's when the idea hit me. The name tags. I made them on the computer in my garage. Everyone had one. Funny labels like Prosecco Queen and Grill Master. I put them out on a table near the drinks cooler, told everyone to grab one. Mine said, "Father of her child, allegedly." I wore it under a flannel shirt. No one saw it at first. I waited through the appetizers, through the toasts, through the moment Clayton grabbed the mic and said, "To Alana, who's always known how to light up a room." I waited until people started drifting into little circles, conversations overlapping with the low music. Then I took off the flannel. The air changed. I felt it before anyone said a word. Clayton saw it first. He did this slow double take, eyes narrowing. His posture shifted like he was ready to pounce. "What did you just say?" he said, voice sharp. Heads turned. Drinks paused mid-sip. I didn't look away. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the envelope. White, thick, unmarked. It felt heavier than it should have. "You want to open it together in front of everyone," I said, voice steady. "Or should we wait until cake?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Alana froze. I could see the blood drain from her face. She looked at the envelope, then at Clayton, then back at me. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Clayton took a step forward. "Joe, don't." Alana snatched the envelope from my hand and ripped it open. Papers fluttered. She scanned the lines, her eyes racing, mouth trembling. Then she dropped the page. It landed at her feet like a slap. Silence. She tried to speak, then covered her mouth and turned away. People started whispering. Someone gasped. My sister's husband muttered, "Holy SHD." I stood there, still, waiting for someone to say it out loud. The truth hung in the air, louder than anything anyone could say. Mira wasn't mine. Not biologically. I didn't move. I didn't yell. I just walked out of the backyard, through the gate, into the dark. My heart was pounding, but I felt strangely calm, like something buried deep had finally been unearthed. I didn't go home that night. I didn't answer Alana's calls or texts. I sat in my truck outside the Meyer parking lot for hours, just staring at the wheel. I kept thinking about Mira, about her laugh, her tiny hand in mine, the way she says "Daddy" when she runs into the room. I felt like I'd lost everything and nothing all at once. The next morning, I still hadn't slept. I watched the sunrise from the driver's seat, the light creeping slowly across the cracked windshield. There were texts from Alana, some long, some one word. "Please, we need to talk." "Joe, I didn't know." But the one that hit hardest came around 6:12 a.m. It just said, "Mira's asking for you." I drove to my sister's place instead of home. She lived about 20 minutes away, just off Plainfield Avenue. I didn't say much when I got there, just that I needed a few days. She didn't press, just handed me coffee and told me the spare bedroom was mine for as long as I needed it. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to find the part where things went wrong. Was it the day I trusted Alana? Was it when I chose not to push harder about Clayton? Or was it the second I let love override logic? I didn't feel like a father. I didn't feel like a husband. I just felt used, hollowed out, like my life had been rewritten behind my back, and I was only now being handed the latest draft. By the second night, I still hadn't responded to Alana. She started calling my sister. I listened through the door while she told her, "He needs time. You need to give him space." But time wasn't solving anything. If anything, it made the ache worse. The not knowing how to act, what to say, the guilt of avoiding Mira even though she had nothing to do with any of it. On the third day, I agreed to meet Alana. Not at the house. We met in her car, parked at the back of the Meyer lot again. Neutral ground. She looked wrecked. Puffy eyes. Bare-faced. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, the way it always was when she was stressed. "I didn't know," she said, before I could say anything. "I swear to you, Joe, I didn't know for sure. I thought it had to be you." Her voice cracked. I looked away. "I asked you," I said quietly. "I asked you point blank. And you made me feel like an a-hole for even wondering." She shook her head, eyes filling again. "Because I wanted to believe it too. You were everything I wanted in a father for her. I thought Clayton was out of my life. I wanted him to be. You lied to both of us," I said. "But worse, you let me build a life on it." She covered her mouth and looked out the window. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't know what you could say that makes this make sense." We sat there in silence for what felt like an hour. Then she whispered, "She still thinks you're her dad. She still calls out for you when she wakes up." What do I tell her? That hit harder than anything. Because despite everything, I still loved that little girl like she was mine. And in every way that mattered, she was. DNA didn't erase 5 years of scraped knees, bedtime stories, or holding her through ear infections. "Tell her I'll see her soon," I finally said. Alana nodded slowly, like she didn't think I actually would. I didn't move back in. I couldn't. Not yet, maybe not ever. But I started coming by to see Mira. First just for an hour, then longer. She clung to me like nothing had changed. I envied her innocence. Her ability to still see me as the same dad who made dinosaur pancakes and carried her to bed when she fell asleep on the couch. Every time I walked away, it felt like my chest was splitting open. Alana tried to talk sometimes. I let her. Mostly, I just listened. She apologized more than I could count. Said Clayton wasn't part of her life, hadn't been since the pregnancy. Claimed she never wanted him involved. But now he knew. And even if he didn't want custody, he could change his mind one day. The thought of him being part of Mira's life, the man who robbed me of mine without even knowing, made my fists clench every time I pictured it. I started therapy. My sister pushed me into it. Said I needed somewhere to dump all the anger that wasn't Alana. She was right. The therapist was this older woman named Gail, soft-spoken but firm. She didn't coddle. First session, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're grieving a version of your life that never existed. That's a loss worth mourning." It landed like a gut punch. That's exactly what it was. Grief. For a family I thought was mine. For a daughter who technically wasn't. For a marriage built on half-truths. Gail said healing doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with choices. I could choose to keep being Mira's father, regardless of biology. Or I could choose to walk away. But either path would hurt. I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. Every time I looked at Alana, I saw the night of her birthday. The envelope. The betrayal. Her hands shaking as she read the words that shattered everything. But every time I looked at Mira, I didn't see any of that. I saw the child who called me daddy when she had a nightmare. The one who asked me if clouds got tired of floating. The one who didn't care about paternity tests, who didn't ask questions, who just wanted to know when I was coming back. I didn't have that answer. Not yet. About a month after the party, I found myself standing in the toy aisle of Target, holding a stuffed triceratops in one hand and my phone in the other. I hadn't planned to buy anything. I just stopped in after a work call nearby. But there it was, blue with little yellow spots, just like the one Mira had clung to for years until she lost it at a hotel last summer. I stood there longer than I should have, just staring at it. It felt stupid, sentimental. But then I thought about the way her face lit up when she talked about dinosaurs, how she used to stomp around the kitchen pretending to be one. I bought it, dropped it off on Alana's porch without ringing the bell. A few hours later, she texted me a photo, Mira hugging it, grinning, missing her 2 front teeth. She won't let it go. Thank you. I didn't reply. I was still figuring out the new rules. What I was to her. To both of them. I was tired of the titles. Husband, father, liar, victim. They all felt heavy. None of them felt quite right anymore. I started showing up for school pickup once a week. We kept it simple. Ice cream, the park, coloring books at the diner where the waitresses knew our names. Mira never asked why I wasn't home. I think part of her knew something had changed, but not enough to name it. One day, she looked at me over her vanilla cone and said, "Why are you sad sometimes?" It stopped me cold. I hadn't realized I was showing it. "I just miss you a lot," I said, and it wasn't a lie. She leaned across the table, sticky fingers gripping my sleeve. "You don't have to miss me, Daddy. I'm right here." I swallowed hard. Nodded. "I know, sweetheart." After I dropped her off that night, I sat in my truck with the engine running and cried for the first time since the day the test came back. Not the sharp, loud kind of crying. Just quiet, hot tears that wouldn't stop. I didn't even know what part hurt the most anymore. I just knew that all of it did. The legal stuff started creeping in soon after. Custody paperwork, mediation, more uncomfortable meetings in dull offices with bad coffee and neutral walls. Alana didn't fight me. She wanted me involved. Said she never saw another path forward where I wasn't her father. But legally, it wasn't that simple. Michigan law isn't exactly designed for cases like ours. When a child's paternity is disproven, it throws everything into question. I'd signed the birth certificate, but DNA trumps signatures. The mediator asked me if I was planning to seek full custody, partial, or relinquish my rights. Relinquish. The word felt like poison in my mouth. I said I needed time to think. And I did. Because every option carried weight. If I fought for legal custody, I'd be dragging Mira through a legal process that might confuse her more. If I stepped back, I risked losing the right to be her father in any official sense. No school pickups. No medical decisions. No say in where she lived or what happened to her. It was terrifying. No one prepares you for this. No handbook, no blueprint. Just a lot of late nights, long silences, and questions you don't want answers to. Alana tried to keep things light when I visited. She stopped wearing her ring. She didn't ask me to come back, but I could see it in her eyes every time I walked in. She was scared too. We'd failed at a marriage, yes. But more than that, we'd failed at truth. And I didn't know if love could survive that kind of fracture. She once told me, "I wanted her to be yours because I knew you'd never leave her." And I didn't. But that didn't mean everything else could stay the same. One night in January, I came by for dinner. Spaghetti and garlic bread, just like old times. Mira had drawn a picture of all 3 of us holding hands in front of the house. She handed it to me before bed and said, "We're still a family, right?" Alana looked up from the sink, frozen. I looked down at her drawing. Crayons, lopsided hearts, my name spelled Joe. I nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetheart. We are." That night, Alana and I sat on the back porch after Mira was asleep. No wine, no music, just the cold air and the sound of distant traffic. "She knows something's different," Alana said softly. "She's not dumb," I replied. "She feels everything." She looked over at me. "What happens now?" I shook my head. "I'm still trying to figure that out." She reached for my hand, but I didn't move. Not out of anger, but because I couldn't offer what she wanted. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The truth had changed too much. The story we told ourselves had unraveled, and I was still trying to decide if I wanted to stitch something new from the scraps or walk away from the mess entirely. Weeks passed. The winter started to thaw, but inside me, something stayed frozen. I was still seeing Mira every few days, still sitting across the table from Alana when necessary, but the trust was gone. It had drained out of our home like a slow leak, when I hadn't noticed until it was too late to patch. The mediation dragged on. Alana pushed for shared custody, told the lawyers that I was the only father Mira had ever known. And despite everything, I knew she meant that. But good intentions didn't erase lies. They didn't make betrayal any less painful. One night, after tucking Mira in and kissing her forehead like I'd always done, Alana stopped me at the door. She had this look, half nervous, half hopeful. "I've been thinking," she said. "About us. About everything." I waited. I know I can't fix what I broke, but I want to try, if you'll let me. It was the moment she'd clearly been building toward for weeks. Quiet hints, soft glances, brushing my arm as she passed. The idea that maybe, somehow, we could rewind. I stared at her. "You want me back?" I said flatly. "After what you did. I want our family back," she whispered. "I want you." There was a time when that would have wrecked me, torn me between what I wanted to believe and what I knew to be true. But not anymore. I smiled. Not warmly, not cruelly, just enough to say I'd made peace with something she hadn't yet accepted. "I want something too," I said. She tilted her head. "What?" I reached into my coat pocket and handed her a manila envelope. Familiar looking. Her hands trembled as she took it. She looked at me questioningly. "Just open it," I said. She did. Slowly. Inside was a printout of a real estate listing. Her late father's lake cabin, the one she'd inherited and kept hidden from me during our marriage. I'd only found out about it after I started digging into our finances during the mediation process. She was planning to sell it quietly, thinking I wouldn't know. I did know. I'd spoken to the listing agent, and I'd bought it, in full, using a separate LLC in my brother-in-law's name. "It closed yesterday," I said, watching her eyes widen. "You can keep the house, the one we lived in. I don't want it. But this one mattered to you." Her mouth opened, but she didn't speak. "That's where you and Clayton first started seeing each other again, right?" I added. I figured it'd be nice for me to own it now. The color drained from her face. "You," she started, but nothing came out. I turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Oh, and don't worry," I said. "I'm not keeping it. I'm donating it to a nonprofit that supports single fathers. They'll turn it into a retreat space." "Thought you'd like that." I didn't wait for a response. The final mediation was 2 weeks later. I agreed to shared custody of Mira. Legally, it was still a gray area, but I wasn't walking away from her. Alana didn't fight it. I think a part of her was still stunned. Not just about the cabin. About the fact that I hadn't yelled, hadn't begged, hadn't tried to win her back. I just moved on. With grace. And a scalpel. 3 months later, I took Mira up north. Not to the lake cabin. She never knew about that. We rented a little place in Traverse City, just the two of us. She chased seagulls, made sandcastles, and fell asleep on the couch watching old cartoons with me. That night, she rolled over and mumbled, "You're the best, Daddy." And I just whispered back, "Always will be." Not because I needed to prove anything anymore. Not to Alana. Not to Clayton. Not even to the courts. Just to her. Because she's mine. Maybe not by blood, but by love? Completely. And that's all the revenge I needed. It's been almost a year since the party. The photos from that night don't live on the fridge anymore. They're packed away in a box in the attic, next to our wedding album, Mira's first baby shoes, and the envelope that blew everything apart. I haven't opened it again. I don't need to. I still see Mira 3 times a week. Sometimes more. We have our little routines now. Tuesday night pancakes, Saturday park visits, Sunday puzzles. She's getting taller, funnier, and harder to keep up with. She tells people proudly, "I have 2 homes," like it's a superpower. Alana and I are civil. Some days, even friendly. But there's distance now. Not anger. Just a kind of respectful caution. Like 2 people who survived a storm they never expected, and now know how quickly the sky can change. As for Clayton, he's still around. I hear he's moved on, dating someone new. He asked Alana about visiting Mira a few times. She hasn't said yes yet. That's her call, not mine. I've been dating a little, nothing serious. It's hard to let someone in when the blueprint for trust was burned down. But I'm learning. The lake cabin? It's fully renovated now. The nonprofit turned it into a retreat space for single dads and their kids. I visited once, stood on the porch where Alana and Clayton had made their secret. I looked out at the water, felt the breeze, and left with nothing heavy in my chest. Just peace. Funny how revenge doesn't always have to be sharp. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well, with your head high and your heart intact. Mira starts kindergarten soon. She wants a dinosaur backpack and shoes that light up. She asked me to walk her in on the first day. I'll be there, front and center, holding her hand. Because no DNA test in the world can change that she's mine, where it counts. And that's all that matters.